Attended the Bosma house several times during this investigation, and the garage was full of people tweeting and going on different social medias, and it's quite amazing just how much it's touched our community as well as entire Canada, and it's a terrible case.
Has that helped in any way? Just as an aside, has that helped in any way?
Well, it's helped us because we also monitor it. We've placed an officer to look at that social media and see any tips that might come off it. And yes, once in a while there are some tips off that. So it is important.
I understand you had the very terrible duty of having to notify the family. Can you just tell us how that went?
Well, it was a very tragic event, and for my team, I think as a leader of the team, I think that's my job to do the hard jobs, and it was a very hard job to notify the family of a loved one, and I'm sorry for the Bosma family. I have no idea what they're experiencing right now.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I said it a little while ago.
In-depth radio in Toronto, Newstalk 1010, a very compelling news conference by the Hamilton Police. That was the voice of Detective Sergeant Matt Kavanaugh, and here's what we just learned, folks. First-degree murder. That charge against 27-year-old Dylan Millard in the death of 32-year-old Tim Bosma. Also, that there was a second vehicle, and they do not know how many people would have been in that second vehicle, but they don't know, unfortunately, what that second vehicle is. They seem to believe that they have the time of death, and they know that it was definitively his truck. I'm Jim Richards, and this is In-Depth Radio in Toronto News Talk 1010. That was the press conference that, sadly, again, as we confirmed earlier today, just after 10 o'clock, that they had found Tim Bosma's body, and we've just learned more right there in that press conference. Ross McLean joins us right now. He's a crime specialist who has been following this story, and Ross, it's a tragic, sad story, and it seems like the heart of everyone in the GTA bleeds for the Bosma family. The press conference and the job that the police have done has been rock solid so far.
It's been outstanding, Jim. This police conference, the family is devastated today. Their community is devastated today. We all pass on our condolences, but they can feel confident that I'm looking at this response by this Hamilton Police Department, by all the departments that were listed, and it's outstanding. You're going to see some more results in this soon, Jim. They
said during the press conference that he was targeted, but at the same time they maintained that there was no connection prior to that test drive on May the 6th, that they had any knowledge of each other.
Yeah, if you'll notice the one thing the investigator said there, he said he's not positive on the motive, but there is the similarity of the truck being the same truck that was test-driven in Etobicoke. Where, by the way, the witnesses picked up the Ambition tattoo, which was a huge break in this case.
So that these two people who are believed to have abducted Tim Bosma had tried to buy a truck earlier.
Yeah, they at least looked at the exact same similar truck, which is the first thing that confounded me until you start to look at some of the background of this man, Dylan. They do a lot of car projects. He does a lot of racing. He owned a similar truck. He used a similar truck to tow a trailer that he had. They tear down vehicles. They rebuild them. So there is a reason why they wanted that model truck.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking that this guy's a pretty affluent guy. At least we're led to believe that he's pretty affluent. Went to a great school, a Toronto French private school here in the city, and then had this aviation company recently moving to Waterloo. So he's not a guy who's hard up, needs to steal a truck.
Yeah, but sometimes there's funny things that go on with families around the times of the death of his father died in December, and his father was the one that was running the company before. And he was in the middle of negotiating some huge contracts with major airlines about doing services on jets. And when he passed away, that all fell through. They decided not to go forward with it. He becomes CEO, and is he the right guy to be, pardon the pun, but piloting this company?
Let's go through a couple of other things that they said in the press conference. That second vehicle, is it shocking to you that police forces in and around the GTA, and they tip the hat to all the police forces that have helped work on this, couldn't identify a car?
They'll identify it. They'll find it. He indicated that there's warrants out now to go check and search a couple of vehicles, which indicates they had to identify the vehicles, the plates, where they are. They'll be tied to suspects. They'll have names. They'll have people registered to them, people who drove them. Those plates may be covered on different information bases, GPS. the police are doing a stellar job. It's a matter of time.
I'm Jim Richards, along with Ross McLean. He is a crime specialist, folks, a former police officer. We're talking about the press conference just wrapping up moments ago. We heard that there would be a first-degree murder charge against Dylan Millard. We also heard that there was a unidentified vehicle that they are looking for, and that indeed they have identified that truck as the truck of Tim Bosma, who earlier today we learned they found his body. And again, targeted but not connected, which is something that I've thought was pretty interesting. Now, if there's someone out there, that second suspect that they're looking for, they haven't released his name yet, but they did say that there would be a public safety danger, perhaps.
Yeah, there's that second suspect better get his own good lawyer and turn himself in, because he'll be pinned the tail on the murderer time between these murderers, Jim. Tragic story, folks. The press conference just wrapping up. First-degree murder charges now have been brought or will be brought tomorrow against Dylan Millard. We'll keep you up to date. News at the top of the hour, and I want to take some of your phone calls as the story has rocked the Greater Toronto Area. I'm Jim Richards. This is In Depth Radio in Toronto, Newstalk 1010.
And I beg and I plead to whomever has my husband to please let him go. Please drop him off somewhere. Or make an anonymous call to the police so we know where to find him.
This is heartbreaking. And that was last week, the wife of Tim Bosma, who we learned moments ago, Tim probably died that very same day. 32-year-old Tim Bosma, who we've all been looking for in the Greater Toronto Area for more than a week now. We learned earlier today that he was murdered seemingly over a truck, 2007 truck pickup that goes for about $24,000. We're at a press conference about 20 minutes ago. Wrap up, Detective Sergeant Matt Kavanaugh gave us the details earlier here on In-Depth Radio News Talk 1010.
On Monday, May 6, 2013, Tim Bosma accompanied two males in his 2007 pickup truck for a test drive. Investigation has now revealed that Tim Bosma was murdered. He was taken to a location in Waterloo area where his body was burned beyond recognition. This is now a homicide investigation.
Charged with first-degree murder now, Dylan Millard, whose family is known for their work in aviation. He's quite well-to-do. He's 27 years of age. With me in studio is Ross McLean, who is a crime specialist. Ross, here's some of the other things that we learned in that press conference. Police say that Tim Bosma was targeted, yet did not know the accused. At the same time, he was abducted that night. I want to get to that in a second, but also Matt Kavanaugh, who's the detective sergeant in this case, wanted to go on and say that there's no reason to believe that Tim Bosma is anything but that father, that husband, that church-going man who was involved in the community. They're looking for a second vehicle. They believe that the person or persons in that second vehicle could pose a public safety concern, and they talked about some of the great work that police departments in and around the area have done, and the contribution from social media and what it meant to find that cell phone. Maybe let's start off with that cell phone that they found days after Tim Bosma went missing has been very helpful.
That's been extremely helpful. You know, a couple of points here, Jim. The police have done excellent work. I mean, they've all worked together. They decided early on to throw everything at this. I mean, you have Hamilton, Halton, Waterloo, Brantford, York, Toronto, the OPP. They're bringing in now the coroner's office, the Centre of Forensic Sciences. This is going to get solved. This all takes time now. It's going to turn into a forensic hunt. But these people who are listening who did it, lawyer up, get a lawyer, turn yourself in. People who know them. There's people who know these people and know something. Call the tip line. Give the police the information.
We're going to talk to a prominent defense lawyer, Gary Cluley, in a moment here on In-Depth Radio News Talk 1010. Detective Sergeant Matt Kavanaugh, Ross, said targeted, that's a pretty broad term. That could mean that, unfortunately, people who are intent on stealing a truck, if somebody gets in the way, they might happen to be the target. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Same as people who are looking to go out and steal cell phones off someone on the street. They're targeting people with cell phones. It seems that there was not any reason to personally target this gentleman who, by all accounts, is just a great citizen of his community who loves him.
Also, that second vehicle that the police at this point can't identify, is that just a matter of time? So they were kind of tiptoeing. If you're just joining us, they didn't necessarily want to say that it's SUV X or Y. They want to be quite categorical when they're able to do that.
Here's the issue with that. These are homicide investigators. Homicide investigators, Jim, are the cream of the crop because they know whatever evidence they get, they have to get correctly and legally, by the book, dot every I, cross every T, because it's going to go to court and it's going to be in front of top lawyers. So they have to take their time to make sure their warrants are filled out expressly, correctly, that everything is correct, so there's no holes for any great defense lawyers to take a rip at them.
You talked about the quality of the police work here. The police are telling us that there is no connection, that there's no reason to believe that the accused knew the victim. So the accused, 27, quite affluent, comes from a great family. This is just doesn't make any sense.
I think the sense will come out when the police start talking to some of these other individuals. I mean, they're going to know who the circle of these people are. I think the police are playing it very close to their chest here, their cards, Jim. And I think you're going to see some developments in this.
These two who ended up doing this to Tim Bosma apparently were at another home earlier trying to test drive another like pickup truck. And it was that connection that allowed the police to know about that tattoo on the wrist that said ambition. Has nobody in the press conference asked if Dylan Millard was known to police? Is it I guess it's just a guess, but if they knew of this tattoo and now Dylan Millard is in custody, is it your belief that he would have been known to police?
It's my opinion, my belief, and I absolutely am sure that he was known to police before, in that he would have been arrested, investigated, or dealt with. And I know that for a couple of reasons, Jim. Number one is a statement from Dylan's own lawyer that he gave to one of the news people the other day. He stated at the time when he was asked if his client had ever has a criminal record, the lawyer had made a remark that says, my client has never had any problems with the police that resulted in him having to do jail. So a lot of people, of course, get arrested and charged. Pretty ambiguous. Yeah. But then he goes on at another point to say, well, have you ever had contact with this Dylan before, meeting with him over this subject? And he said he came in contact with him through another client of his. Now, this is a criminal lawyer who he was working on his case, and he interviewed and dealt with Dylan on that case. So that leads me to believe that he knows there's background there.
That's Russ McLean. He is a crime specialist, and he's helping us out here this afternoon. Prominent defense lawyer Gary Cluley is going to join us in a couple of seconds, and we'll try to, as best we can, understand that press conference a little bit better. If you're just joining us, 27-year-old Dylan Millard now is facing first-degree murder charges in the death of Tim Bosma. I'm Jim Richards, and this is In-Depth Radio in Toronto News Talk 1010. 16 minutes after 3 o'clock, In-Depth Radio in Toronto News Talk 1010, time saver traffic.
Is there any concern for public safety with the suspects not in custody?
Certainly there's a fear of that. Look what he did the first time to Mr. Bosma. So yes, there is a fear. And we're doing everything we can to identify this person and get him under arrest.
That's Detective Sergeant Matt Kavanaugh in a press conference that wrapped up about a half an hour ago. We learned that Dylan Millard, 27-year-old from that aviation family, is now charged with first-degree murder in the death of 32-year-old Tim Bosma. He's been missing since May the 6th, since that test drive for his pickup truck. Prominent defense lawyer Gary Cluley joins us right now. Gary, what sticks out to you as not making any sense at all here?
Well, of course, the problem is with any motiveless crime, it causes everybody real concern, because why this guy? Except that it's clear that he was targeted in some fashion.
Now, a lot of the evidence that we do not know. If you are a defense lawyer and you're looking at this guy, Dylan Millard, he's apparently not talking, but yet we found out that he is shocked. Does that present a problem? Because aren't they kind of telling us something there?
Well, yeah. I mean, it just proves he's got some acting skills. I mean, the body was found on his property, and the guy was with the guy who went missing. So those are the bookends, right? And he's the one in the middle.
I'm Jim Richards. We're with prominent defense lawyer Gary Cluley, along with Ross McLean, crime specialist. Ross?
Yeah, Gary, I'm of the opinion, I come at this from another angle here. I thought it was interesting when I listened to his defense lawyer, and he has a job to do, like every defense lawyer has to do. And he came out and claimed that his client was, even though he was claiming his constitutional and charter rights to remain silent, he did give statements in effect for him, saying that he was shocked, concerned, disconcerted, and 100% not guilty. So,
yeah, all of those can't be held against him, but I don't know if that any of them is true.
Well, but certainly the lawyer is saying that he was shocked would imply that it implies that he knows nothing about this. And
yeah, but it's not uncommon to hear defense lawyers go on about how their clients could vigorously defend the charges, and then later in time they plead guilty. So that's just standard fare, in my opinion. It's a camouflage.
I was just speaking more directly about his words of shocked and concerned as opposed to saying he's 100% guilty. But I think that there's going to be some more coming down the pipe on this, and it's going to need some other lawyers for these other people. What would you advise these other people who are out there who are suspects who are going to get caught to do? How would they approach a lawyer like you? What should they do?
Well, if they are out there, obviously their choices are simple, right? Go on the lam forever or give themselves up. But I'm not convinced they're out there.
Meaning you don't believe that there's a second person, or you're not sure that there's a second person?
No, I think the second person may be dead.
The second person, what would lead you to believe that?
Well, the other guy's dead. And he got burned in a barrel, didn't he?
Yep.
I mean, you don't burn people unless you're trying to, obliterate their identity and the cause of death.
We're talking about the accused now, who is accused of first-degree murder, 27-year-old Dylan Millard. If he was indeed known to police, and there is obviously evidence that we can't know about, is there anything, if he is known to police, would the jury be able to find, would that be introduced, or would all that kind of stuff be held from the jury?
Well, it's not going to be in front of the jury because, known to the police can mean a ton of things. It may mean nothing more than they suspect that he had some kind of prior involvement with crime, but that's not good enough to get in front of a jury. That's just bad character evidence.
Well, Gary, what about if, and this is I'm just asking this question in general here, what if he had been involved in stealing other vehicles before and similar vehicles before?
Well, again, not unless the Crown had some pretty good evidence that made it, almost positive that he was involved in this case. Generally speaking, the courts don't like to let that evidence in because it means that the jury's convicting him for something that he wasn't charged for. And, they're very nervous about that. They want the Crown to be able to prove the facts at hand here. And after all, this is the first degree, so it means either that the whole thing was planned for some macabre reason that hasn't yet surfaced, or he was forcibly confined. They went for a drive around with him and decided at some point to kidnap him and thereafter kill him.
And we already know that he had been charged previously until the charge tomorrow when he's charged officially with first-degree murder. He had already been charged with forcible confinement.
Well, there you go. So you add the forcible confinement to the murder, and you've got yourself first degree.
Gary, what about his lawyer has said that he's not going to seek bail on Wednesday? Why would a lawyer not seek bail for his client in this situation?
Well, for one thing, only the Superior Court can grant it. So the court he's appearing in tomorrow is the Ontario Court of Justice, and frankly, the Justice of the Peace doesn't have the authority to grant it. So that's really not saying anything except that he isn't in the right place to even seek it. To get bail, he's going to have to ask a Superior Court judge somewhere down the road to grant it. And to do that on a first-degree case like this, for one thing, that's a huge mountain to get over. Murderers rarely get bail, especially the first-degree kind, because those who are able to calculate a crime like this are also able to calculate their way out of the country. And two, the seriousness of the offense is so overwhelming that it's unlikely, in my opinion, he'll get bail. So, again, you're foregoing something you were never going to get.
Mr. Cluley, thanks for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Gary Cluley, prominent defense lawyer in this city, and some good answers there. And some things that stuck out to you, again, with Ross McLean. He's a crime specialist, former police officer in studio. I'm Jim Richards. This is In-Depth Radio in Toronto, News Talk 1010. We're talking about the press conference that started about 40 minutes ago. We learned that Dylan Millard, who is from that prominent aviation family, 27 years of age, now charged with first-degree murder, forcible confinement, and theft of that pickup truck that is valued at about $25,000. This all over a pickup truck. Earlier, you had, I don't want to say speculated, but when you add up the fact that these guys didn't know each other prior to May the 6th, it just might look like a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be at this point, not knowing any other motive. There seemed to be a want for this type of truck, Jim. They looked for it twice. They found it here. And if it had gone wrong, I mean, Tim Bosma, he was a working man. And sometimes working men and working men muscles, they don't put up with crap. But if, he might just have put up a fight and they just might have gone wrong on them.
25 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is In-Depth Radio in Toronto, News Talk 1010. Again, that press conference, and we'll have details in about 5 minutes. In the news, we learned at 2:30 that the 32-year-old Tim Bosma, missing since May the 6th, who we heard this morning, his body had been found. Dylan Millard is now in custody and charged with first-degree murder, forcible confinement, and more details coming up in 5 minutes here on In-Depth Radio in Toronto, News Talk 1010. I'm Jim Richards.